Please stand by as we are about to begin. Good day and welcome to the Plan, Find, Apply Effective Grant Development webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded, and at this time I would like to turn things over to Rochelle Seeger. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, and thanks for everyone on the call for joining us today. So glad you're here. We have a lot of great information for you. My name is Rochelle Seeger. I work at the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky as a Community Health Research Officer here, and I'm glad to work on the Foundation's data initiatives, including the Kentucky Health Issues Poll, KentuckyHealthFacts.org, and this training series we call Health for a Change, which is so exciting because I get to reach out to people just like you who are working to make health improvements across the state of Kentucky. We have a great representative from east to west, from health departments to hospitals, and I'm so glad all of you could join us today. The Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky's mission is to address the unmet health care needs of Kentuckians. And I'm so excited to do this training series because I get to meet all sorts of people just like you who are working in Kentucky. The Foundation does its work by developing and influencing policy, improving access to care, reducing health risks and disparities, and promoting health equity. Before we get started with the main content, I wanted to remind you of this training series. You can look on our website, healthy-ky.org. On the Events tab, you'll see the listing of Health for a Change. It has an archive of all our past events, and we'll also be posting the slide deck and the recording of today's webinar on the website at that location. So after the webinar, you'll have access to all the slide deck. Upcoming trainings. June 20th, we'll have a health equity webinar, and July 11th will be another health equity webinar. I'm thrilled to let you know that Prevention Institute, the nationwide organization who works to advance the practice of primary prevention, and experts on health equity will be on the webinar to talk about that issue, to talk about what we can do to improve health equity in our state and learn from them on their work across the country. We have two Planning for Success webinars. The first one will be about MAP process, so you health department folks will know exactly what I'm talking about. Join us to learn about that planning process and also strategic development. The second Planning for Success webinar will be on evaluation, so please join us on those events. If you're in the Bowling Green area on August 16th, we'll be having a Working with the Media workshop. That's an in-person workshop that'll be held at the Warren County Public Library. Again, all of those are available on our website. My final announcement this morning is save the date. On Monday, September 24th, we'll be in Lexington, Kentucky to have our annual Howard L. Bose Memorial Health Policy Forum. The topic of that will be Kentucky's Substance Use Epidemic Solutions Update. Please feel free to join us. Save the date. That registration will open later this summer. Finally, if you aren't already following us on social media, I tweet out of Kentucky Health Facts, and we have a Foundation, Twitter, and Facebook pages there as well. Last invitation I'm going to make to you. Here in Louisville, we have a building that the Foundation purchased and a beautiful conference facility with nice technologies, great training spaces, and that is open for groups just like yourself to use. Please check out the About Us tab and the conference facility page on the Foundation's website where you can see a calendar and also a registration form. Please join us in Louisville if you need to have a training in our city. Well, speaking of libraries, I'm thrilled to have a librarian from Lexington Public Libraries here to join us today because he is expert on grant writing and accessing the Foundation Center. So please help me welcome to the call David Bryant. David, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Rochelle. I'm really happy to be here today to talk about resources for finding information on foundations and grants. Let me advance my slide. As you said, my name is David Bryant. I'm a librarian at Lexington Public Library. And just a little bit about what we will cover today. Waiting for the slide to advance. Okay, today I will provide an overview of Foundation Center resources and how to locate them. I'll also cover a little bit of funding basics, what you need to know and what needs to be in place before you get started. We will look at the Foundation directory online, and we'll do some sample searches, and I'll provide some tips to improve your searches. And we will also look at some tips for writing the grant proposal. And also we will look at some additional resources that are available to you in your community. Okay, in my work at the library, I typically encounter two types of patrons looking for assistance. I tend to encounter experienced people who work for nonprofits and they just want some help logging into the Foundation directory database. Or I meet people who have a really great cause they're really dedicated to, that's very important to them, or they have no idea where to start. So I tend to see those two extremes, and I'll try to address both needs with this. Getting started can be really daunting. There's lots of terminology and concepts that people may not be familiar with. But the great thing is there's a lot of really great free resources out there that you can take advantage of. Foundation grants, often people will start with foundation grants before they move into looking for federal or state grants because they're viewed as being a little bit easier. Sometimes they're less competitive. Typically it will be sometimes a smaller award, and often they don't require they require minimal or no matching funds. So sometimes people find the foundation route as an easier way to get started. Okay. I think I mentioned earlier, but Lexington Public Library is a partner with the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center is the go-to source for information on foundations and grants. Their stated mission is to strengthen the social sector by advancing knowledge about philanthropy in the United States and around the world. Now, they do this primarily through a database they offer called Foundation Directory Online, and I'll demonstrate some searches using that database. But being a partner with the Foundation Center, Lexington Public Library is a member of the Foundation Information Network. So in addition to providing access to their database, we also offer assistance to customers in the form of individual sessions, and also we do classes and webinars to assist people. So you can set up an appointment with a librarian. Each Foundation Information Network location has a person that is the supervisor who is trained to help people with using these resources. And there should be one not too far away from you. I'm in Lexington, of course, but I went on their website and I did a search for my zip code to find other Foundation Information Network locations, and I provided a list here, but there's thousands of locations across the United States. And you really don't have to be local to the library where you go to use the database. I've had people come in from surrounding counties, even as far away as Western Kentucky. They have set up an appointment with me, and I've sat down with them and gone over how to use the Foundation Center database. I would encourage you, to get a little bit more information before you go to use the Foundation Directory at a library. Check out their website before you go, or give them a phone call just to double check about the availability and their hours. Also, if you want to set up a session with a librarian, that may be something that you have to set up in advance. They may not be available at all times to sit down with you. And also double check if it's a library system that has multiple locations. just double check that the actual branch or location you're going to will have access to the database. Unfortunately, we're unable to allow people to use the Foundation directory in their homes. A lot of our databases, if you're at home, you can use your library card and get into the database from home. But this is one of the few that you actually have to be inside the walls of the library to access. So you will want to double check that information before you actually go visit. Okay, as I mentioned, before you get started in your search, there's some things that you're going to want to have in place that will really make your search a lot more productive once you get started. Okay, the first of those would be, is your organization ready? Have you met all the legal requirements to be a nonprofit? I think a lot of you probably work for local and state agencies, so this won't be as much of an issue. But this, especially with newer nonprofits, this is a big consideration. Do you have a bylaws? Have you registered with the state as a nonprofit? Do you have a board in place? All of this information has to be settled before you really start writing your grant proposals. Are you registered as a 501c3 organization with the IRS? The foundations are going to require you to prove this before they will award grants to you. Okay, and the next thing to consider is you cannot rely on grants alone. A lot of times nonprofits, they are under the assumption that they can get a couple of large grants and they can run their entire organization from those funds. It would be wonderful if it worked that way, but that's just typically not the way things work. You're going to want to build a solid foundation of individual donors that have a record of sustained support, and then you're going to use grant money to supplement special projects. And grants also are typically not used for operational costs, foundation grants. You have to find the right match for your project or organization. Not all funders are alike. In fact, most of them are more different than they are alike. Funders typically are looking to support projects that promote their interests. You may have a great idea, but if it doesn't match up with what that particular funder's objectives are, it's not going to be a match and they're not going to be interested. Doesn't mean your idea is not the best in the world. It's just it has to match. It has to be in line with what they're looking to fund. Are you clear about your purpose? Do you duplicate or overlap services in a geographic area? So if you're addressing issues that 5 other nonprofits in the area are also working on, it's not going to be as appealing to private foundations. Foundations typically like to see partnerships. They like to see collaboration between groups, and that is just really appealing to them. That you're not duplicating the work of another organization. Are your goals realistic? If your goal is to eradicate hunger, that might be too broad. So you might want to focus your goal and address food scarcity in your county, or even just focus your goals a bit more. Okay. Now that's by no means an exhaustive list of everything that you need to address before you start your search, but But the more preparation you do, the better search results you're going to get when you start searching on the Foundation directory. Okay. As I mentioned, the primary database for searching for grants is the Foundation Directory Online. It's a searchable database with detailed grant maker profiles, grant recipients, information about grants, and 990 forms. As I said, there is a subscription fee for the database, which as an individual or as an organization you can subscribe to, but for most that is a prohibitive cost, and therefore at the library we pay that cost, and then you're able to come in to the library and use it free of charge. We also provide assistance, and it's free at a Foundation information network near you. So now we'll take a look at the database. Okay. Now most of the libraries that offer the Foundation Directory, they will have some sort of page that lists resources that they have available for nonprofits. At Lexington Public Library, we have a page called Nonprofit Resources, and on here I'm going to go over several of these in the presentation today, but we have it laid out for you. Here we have Foundation Directory Online. The great thing is when you come into the library, you can use it on any computer in the library or on your laptop, and it should be that way at most of the locations. But here, I'll open up the Foundation Directory Online now. And Foundation Directory Online is really a very powerful database. It's a little bit different than just doing Google searches. We're now accustomed to just putting in the terms we like, and magically what we're looking for just appears on Google. It takes a little bit more time and a little bit more of a strategy when you're using the Foundation Directory or any database, as opposed to just doing simple Google searches. But if you spend a little bit of time with it, I think you'll find that it's very much worth the time. This database has recently been restructured, so the good news is it's actually much easier to use than it was even about a year ago. So if some of you may have used it in the past, it's probably going to look quite a bit different than what you're used to. And as you see, when I open up the main page, it has a box, and it's designed for you just simply to start out by typing in what you're looking for. You'll see here they have ballet school in New York City. So I am going to, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to say I want to fund a health clinic in Kentucky. I would always encourage you when you're starting out to put in a geographic location, because depending upon the subjects that you're working with, you're going to get a very large number of results, and a lot of them will not be applicable to what you're looking for. So it will just be an unmanageable result set that you get. Now, if you'll see here where it says include U.S. federal funders, I'm going to uncheck that, because today we were primarily going to talk about foundation grants. And I think Rochelle was going to talk about looking for some reason that's not unchecking, was going to talk about using grants.gov in a moment. So I'll leave that out for now, because primarily the Foundation Directory Online is for private foundations. So health clinic in Kentucky, and we just click search. Okay, and it gives you your results. very well organized up here at the top. It breaks it down into 69 grant makers. That's their term for foundation. 257 grants, 39 recipients, and 143 990 tax forms. Now just a word on 990 tax forms. That is the form that the foundation reports to the IRS each year about their financial information, and that's how the Foundation Center creates this database. They take the information from those 990 tax forms, they organize it and catalog it so that you can then come in and search the database. But you'll see here that, like I said, they break it down into the topics for you. So we'll take a look first. There are 69 grant makers. So we come down here, you see where it lists the individual grant makers. And if you hover over one of the results, here I'm looking at Good Samaritan Foundation, it brings up a basic snapshot of the foundation. It tells you their basic financial information, their total assets, their total giving for the past year. It lists the top subject areas associated with that foundation. And it gives you some information on the size of the grants that are awarded, which is really great information to have because here they're doing average $1,000 to $225,000 grants, which is a pretty wide range. But if they were giving primarily $1,000 to $5,000 grants, but you're looking for $250,000, you might know that, okay, well that's not one I really want to explore any further. And so you could just immediately eliminate that as a consideration. And then it also gives you a link to their website. And I would encourage you highly to check out the websites for the various foundations that come up in your results. Some of the information in this database is outdated. They update it as regularly as the information is available to them, but things can change very quickly. So I would also encourage you to look at the actual website for the foundation. Okay, so that's the basic snapshot. Now if we come over here and click on the name of the foundation, it takes you into the full record. And there is really quite a bit of information provided in this full record. So immediately at the top, it breaks down the subject area that the foundation here, we're talking Good Samaritan Foundation, here's the name at the top, but then it lists the primary subject areas that they work in. It lists the geographic areas where the money is going. Here we see Good Samaritan is primarily in Kentucky, but they're also doing some work in Ohio as well. And it gives you a breakdown of the average size of the grants. So the majority of the grants they award are in the $10,000 to $25,000 range. Now, as you scroll farther down the page, over to the left, there's a menu where you can jump to various areas on the page. Here we have the grants that were awarded, the funding interests, information about, and so on. So over here is a listing of the grants. You can see the recipient, Family Community Clinic Incorporated, Hope Health Clinic. Those are the names of the recipients here. Moving over gives you more information about their location, the year, and see here this is 2016, so that's the most recent information that they have. So it's already 2 years old. But then it also gives you the grant amount. Okay. This next region on the page, funding interest, this has a lot of information that can really be useful to you when you are refining your search. In this subject box, see if I click on View All and expand that list, that will give you other subject areas that are associated with this foundation that you may want to use when you're trying to expand your searches or refine them. So for example, I put in health clinic, Kentucky. Well, maybe I'm actually focusing on mental health. So then I would know, well, I should actually change my search to mental health care. Here is the geographic focus. Primarily, this foundation is focused in Kentucky. And I just want to say a word about geographic focus as opposed to the foundation location. At times people get those two concepts confused a little bit. The geographic focus is the area where the money is going, the geographic areas where the projects are being funded, as opposed to the location of the actual foundation. Here, information on population groups and support strategies. You know, a lot of foundations will not fund for operational costs or program development or buildings, that sort of thing. But this will have information on what kind of programs they fund, and so that way you could eliminate them if it didn't match up with your interests. Going farther down, general information about the funder. This is a great section, other funders to consider. The foundation directory, they automatically list similar funders that you might want to consider. If you're interested in Good Samaritan, you might also want to look at these as well. Okay, information about their application process. Many foundations now have a form or even an online form that you will use, but this varies greatly. Some of the foundations will have a form, but some have no information. It's just a date, proposals accepted, until March 15th, something like that. So you really have to pay attention to what their requirements are so that you do follow their guidelines exactly. Information on giving limitations. And then again, here's the financial information. And also, now this is an example where you would also want to check their website as well, because this kind of information can change very quickly. But they also have a list of their board members, and also this one has some donors as well. That won't always be the case that there will be donors listed. But this is great information to have. There could be someone who serves on your board who is a connection with someone on the board of this foundation. And this will come into play especially because in the application process, you will often see a statement that says unsolicited proposals not accepted. So they approach the organizations that they would like to apply. So sometimes if you can put into contact someone on your board with someone on their board, that can be your in to be able to submit a proposal. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, just general information about contacting the funder. Okay, so that was a breakdown of all the information within an individual grant maker record, and you'll see that it's pretty substantial what's available on this database. Now I wanted to show you a few more features. So if we go back up here near the top left-hand corner, you can navigate back to previous parts of the search process. So I'm going to go back to my search results page. Okay, and then it takes me back to the initial listing. And if I scroll up to the top of that page, you'll see that now I have a number of several more search boxes, search options available to me. see here in the subject area category, I can now click there and a browsable list comes up where I can select additional topics that I would like to search. So if I go over to health and I expand that, I can then add topics to my search. So I'm going to add healthcare access. There we go. I think there's a delay. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to keep my geographic focus as Kentucky, although that can be further, you can make that even more specific going down to the city level. If I go over to population serve and click there, a menu comes up where I can select age groups, ethnic racial groups, family relationships, health, etc. I'm going to expand age groups. And for some reason, gender is under age groups on here, but I'm going to select females because I'm going to be working primarily with women. And there we go. So I'm just going to click search again and see how that changes my results. Okay, and you see I only got 5 grant makers that time. So depending upon the topics that you add or take away, you can drastically change the number of results that you get. So I'm going to remove females, but I'm going to keep healthcare clinics, and let's see. Okay, so I actually added, I got 69 the first time I did my search, but adding healthcare clinics added about 10 or so results to it. So that brings me up to 78. So just an example of how you can drastically change the results you get depending upon the topics that you select. Now, you also, if you'll notice here where it says 2003 to 2018, you'll notice that's a drastic difference. This is information going all the way back to 2003. So there's a really good chance that information is no longer relevant. But the great thing is you can use this and slide that up, and we'll change it to 2015. So I will limiting with these topics, and just with the last 3 years, I'll do my search. Okay, and so that takes us down to 38. So almost half of the original results were within the last 3 years, but I'm just demonstrating ways that you can refine your search results to get more applicable information for what you're looking for. A really great feature that I like about this database, if I get 200 results and I only have time to look at a couple of them, I have to leave the library, I don't have time, I can go over here and click on View All, and then that brings up a list, and I can, with no more than 10 at a time, I can select funders that I want to look at, but I just don't have time right now. I can select them, and then I can go up here to Tools, and I can download a PDF of the results. I can save it as an Excel spreadsheet, and I can also email the results to me. So even though you can't use it at home, you could potentially save a lot of your results and look at them later at a time that's more convenient for you. I think that's a really great feature. Okay. One other great feature I want to show you on this database. I'm going to go back up here to the left where you can navigate back. I'm going to go back to the original Find Funding screen. Okay. Now, if you look over here to the right under the search button, I can search by organization. So I'm going to click there. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to look up an organization and it will show you all of the grants that organization received. So just to illustrate, I work at Lexington Public Library. Okay, and it even provides it in a browsable menu for you, so I'll make sure to choose Lexington, Kentucky. And I will do a search. I will get a list of the funders that awarded grants to Lexington Public Library and the grants that Lexington Public Library received. So this is a great tool that a lot of people like because you can identify organizations doing similar work to you, and you can look up that organization and you can find who they applied, who they received grants from, and then that's a potential funder for you as well. Now, you've always been able to do this. It's just that you would have to go in and find the organization's 990 tax forms and look and see, who the money was awarded to. But now this makes it a lot easier. You can just find it directly through this database. Okay. So hopefully you can see what a powerful database Foundation Directory Online is. And as I said, at one of the Foundation Information Networks, you can contact a librarian there, and there should be a person on staff there to help you get set up and show you the basics of performing searches. I'll go back to the PowerPoint. So just to sum up some of the search tips for using Foundation Directory, start simple. Just start with that basic search box, put in the terms that you're looking for, and just kind of see what you get, and then start refining and expanding from there. Have a good idea of what you're trying to fund. If you already have a pretty clear project in mind, that will really you'll have much better results with your searches. Remember to remember the difference between the geographic focus versus the location of the funder. Check on what type of support you're seeking. Limit your searches, refine your search with age groups, gender, ethnicity, and just using those aspects, try expanding and narrowing your search. Okay. Another Foundation Center resource that people really, once they know about it, they really are happy to use is GrantSpace. GrantSpace is a searchable knowledge base that's produced by the Foundation Center. And let's take a look at that page. Okay. They require you, it's a free, the great thing about this is it's free and you can get it, you can access it at home too. You don't have to come to the library to use it. But after you create a free account, they don't ask for very much information. You just set up a username and password. You can then have access to training, a knowledge base, and also additional resources like sample documents. So on training, they have webinars that are available. Many of them are free. Some of them do have a fee. But go over here to free training. There's Introduction to Finding Grants and Introduction to Proposal Writing, which is a great webinar. I've taken that before, and other people have told me it was really beneficial to them. They also offer it in Spanish. So that's a free webinar you can take whenever you would like. There's no set time for it or anything like that. So also I'd like to point out the sample documents page, which is also really popular. And here you can download PDFs of various sample documents that were used by foundations or by nonprofits applying for grants. Especially of interest to people are the proposal budgets. Just open one up real quick here. Yeah, so you'll see here you can actually look at a budget that was created and use that for, to kind of model what you're doing. And finally, let's see. And then also full proposals. And they vary in size. There's a lot to choose from here, so you can choose one that's smaller or larger depending upon what your needs are. Also like to show you another really cool resource available from Foundation Center. It is called Issue Lab. And Issue Lab is it's a source of it's basically a website where nonprofits and research organizations, they upload their research and then it's available to people to use. It's an open source research collection, but it's done by authoritative sources, so you know that you can trust the information. So it's great to have access to figures, statistics, that sort of thing, that you can use that information for doing reports and writing proposals and such. Again, it's like GrantSpace. You have to create a free account, but after you do that, you can set up a profile and then you can sign up for emails, and then of topics you're interested in, they can then notify you when research has been uploaded on that. There's a wide range of areas of research. You'll see there's a list here you can choose from, but there's actually even more than that. So I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. Okay, and that's the end of my portion on Foundation Center resources, and I think Rochelle was going to talk about grants.gov at this point.
Thanks so much, David. I didn't know about Issues Lab, so I'm going to check that out in my spare time. I did want to take a few moments on the webinar to talk about grants.gov. That's the one source where you can find all of the federal grant monies that are available. Before I start, I wanted to remind everyone, if you're interested in chatting in questions to us, please feel free to send those in through the chat feature on the webinar, and we'll try and answer those in our last 15 minutes, or if we can help you with a question or challenge that you're facing, please let us know, and we'll do some homework and get back with you after the webinar. Grants.gov was developed in 2002, and it's the one portal where grant opportunities from the United States federal government are posted, and it's also the portal where all applications will be sent to the federal government. So I just want to point out 3 tabs on the grants.gov website to you. The first one, similar to great things that were about foundations, on the Foundation Center website, grants.gov has a learning center where you can learn 101, learn about the federal grant process, their policies, terminology. Like many huge organizations, there's a million acronyms and different terms. So that's on that first tab called Learn Grants, where you can find out more in your spare time. The second portion of grants.gov is a tab called Search Grants. Similar to just what David showed us on the Foundation Center, you can set all these different parameters in the search boxes. You can see under opportunity status, you can check boxes for forecasted opportunities, posted opportunities, closed or archived opportunities. You can look at eligibility. So maybe you're from the city of Lexington. Under eligibility, you would click that city or township government to limit the proposals that are sent back to you in your search to city and county. So again, lots of great searchable features so you can pull up listings on things that you're interested in getting funding in your community. Some of the highlights that David posted is be specific. Again, you're going to see so many different grant opportunities available, and it's really hard to fit your program into exactly what they want. Also, check the eligibility and the geography. Some of these federal proposals are targeted for specific types of organizations or specific geographies. So check that first before you start doing a lot of work, and then you can find out whether or not that's an opportunity that really fits your organization. And finally, on grants.gov under Connect, that's where you can sign up for email notifications. So for example, if I have a nonprofit that's working with AIDS and HIV, I could put in all of those search engine properties, that topic, the geography I'm serving, and it'll send me notifications when new opportunities are available or news out of grants.gov. Finally, all of the applications on grants.gov are through there. There's a 5-step application process to get your organization set up there. So be certain if you're interested in doing one of those that you would want to plan ahead and get your organization application eligible to do that. And then when the time is ready and the deadline for the application is approaching, you'll be ready to successfully submit a federal grant application. Find out more on grants.gov. And next, I'm going to turn it back over to David, who has some great proposal grant writing tips for us to wrap up our hour here. Go ahead, David.
Okay, thanks. As Rochelle said, I'm going to go over a few proposal tips that I've picked up over the years of helping people with proposals. The first thing you want to keep in mind, and this is what I've always heard people say, it's never about the need of your organization. You're always going to want to present your proposal and to how it's going to benefit your community. You know, it might be really necessary that your clinic needs a new front desk, but that you'll have to frame it in a way that it's obvious that it's actually a benefit to the people using it, as opposed to just the organization. The number one reason that is always stated that a proposal is not accepted is that it's not a good fit, and that's typically the most common reason for rejection. Just look very carefully at that funder's goals and objectives and make sure that you are lining up with them. Give yourself plenty of time. It can take up to 6 months to get a proposal really polished to the point that it's ready to be submitted. So just give yourself plenty of time. Present an organized, well-thought project. Also tailor each proposal for the particular grant, but also have a boilerplate proposal ready to go. To me, this is a lot like when you are submitting resumes for a job application. You have your generic resume, but then you have to tailor it for every position that you're applying for the needs of that position. Follow directions very carefully. If there's an online form, you need to use that form. Don't just submit a proposal. Have all the components that are required in the online form. And that being said, also only provide what they ask for. You don't want to provide a lot of extra materials that they have not requested. Writing tips, it's a good idea to begin with an outline. Make sure it's very clear, well organized before you get started. Give your project a name, something that gets attention, that defines really well what you're looking to do, what the goals are. Keep your language clear and simple. Avoid, as Rochelle just mentioned, avoid a lot of acronyms that are meaningless to people outside of your field. You should be writing so that someone who has really no experience or no idea of what you're writing about or what you're talking about, so that they can understand it. And also give yourself plenty of time to revise and edit. Okay, so after all that means you're finished, right? Well, you do want to you do want to follow up with your proposal. If the answer is yes, that's wonderful news. Make sure you send a thank you letter. With keeping in mind you may want to approach this funder again in the future. Keep the funder informed and just exactly follow all of their reporting requirements. If the answer is no, don't take it personally. It probably just wasn't a good match, and it's always okay to ask for feedback. And I did want to point out a few additional resources, especially for people working for developing nonprofits. If your area has a chapter of SCORE, Senior Corps of Retired Executives, typically they're associated with working with businesses, but they do also have oftentimes a nonprofit mentor. We have developed a partnership at Lexington Public with SCORE, and their nonprofit mentor has been a great resource for people with providing really in-depth assistance on preparing proposals and developing a board and bylaws and that sort of information. Also consider assistance with community foundations, sometimes places like Bluegrass Community Foundation and other groups like that. They will often provide fiscal sponsorship. And also investigate opportunities at local colleges and universities. I talked to a woman recently, and she contacted the law school at University of Louisville, and they were able to provide a lot of assistance with information on getting her nonprofit started and creating bylaws and that sort of thing. So they often have students that are looking for opportunities to help out with things like that. Okay, and if you have any questions, you feel free to call me or send me an email. I can even do some basic searches for people on the database if you need help with that. So feel free. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, David. You said all the things I love, free and doing some work for you. Those are great things that I love to hear. Again, folks on the phone, if you want to chat in some questions. David, here's a question for you. If I wanted to start researching my grant tomorrow, what do you think the first step would be? Where should I start?
Well, I think I would consider, if you have a well-defined project and you have all the foundation in place, I would just spend some time on the foundation. Well, first I might just do some basic web searching and see what's out there, in the area that you're working in, and look at what you can find. Certain like corporate foundations, like things like places like Kroger and Walmart, they often have like direct giving programs. And so you can look into that, and then after that, just block out some time and look on the Foundation Center directory, look at the database, and just get familiar with it and start taking notes, and just spend some time there and see how you can kind of focus what you're searching for. Great.
Or they can listen to the webinar again tomorrow if they want to.
Yeah.
And they can see the slide decks, which will be posted online for everyone to have, so they can refer to those. Let's see. There's one other question, and I'm happy to start with that, but what are some of the successes in searching for grants? Yeah, I think our call was a lot about the challenges, and I loved your guy on the slide. That's how sometimes we feel like when we submit a grant proposal, because it is so much work in planning ahead and getting all those details just right. Two successes that I can think of off the top of my head was the example that you gave about having a proposal ready. A friend of mine had a small nonprofit, and they had a 3-page grant proposal about the work that they were doing and the project they had a vision to do, and a funder approached them to do that work. And now that might be a rare occurrence, as we all know, but again, this nonprofit had their information out there on their website for anyone who was interested in their area of expertise, and that's how they were found. So that was a super exciting thing. And one personally that I've experienced was, although I wrote a grant and it was not funded, I did just as you said, David, and I reached out to the funder and I said, if you have any feedback from me, I welcome it. And they sent the whole review or critique of the proposal. So I knew exactly what they liked and exactly what some of the problems with the proposal were. So it doesn't hurt to ask for feedback. You know, will say yes or no, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about what was working in my grant. Oh, this is a great question. I have some ideas. Let's see, and David, if you want to chime in. What grants are the best to look for if you're starting a health coalition from scratch? That's a great question. I'll start a little bit, and then David, if you have any way to refine my ideas. I think the first step is something we've talked about on this call, is developing those relationships with your health coalition. So that's going to be the best starting point, because then you'll find out more about what your partner organizations, they may be already funded, or you may get together with other groups and find exactly what direction you want to go for your community. So as David mentioned, refining your focus. So those are some great things. Maybe before you even start looking for the grant, that would be a great first step if you're starting a health coalition from scratch. Do you have any ideas to?
Well, I think it goes back to earlier when I talked about building a base of individual donors. That can come into play really well, because especially people who know you. You know, a lot of nonprofits, they start, someone has a great idea and they know people who, you know, believe in the work this person does, and you start with that initial commitment, and then those individual donors, you kind of build a base of funding, and then you can kind of build from there with smaller projects. And as you have success with smaller projects, then you can then use that foundation to move on to larger ones, and then you are more appealing to receive foundation funding.
Yes, that's a great idea. So start with a small grant to build your base and have some evidence. Great. And then, of course, the third thing that you said, David, is find your local connection to the Foundation Center where you have free resources and a real life helpful person that can point you in the right direction. So I thank everyone for chatting in their questions to us today. I love answering questions from the audience. If you have additional questions, you know how to get in touch with us, either David or myself or your local Foundation Center contact. Again, these are our upcoming Health for a Change opportunities. Please join us. We'd love to have you on the webinar talking about health equity, evaluation, strategic planning, and working with the media workshop. All of you on the call in the Bowling Green area, join us there on August 16th. Just after this call, I will email you with a post-event survey. Please do tell us what you thought about our webinar today, what you liked, what messages resonated for you. Suggest future Health for a Change webinars, and it just takes a few minutes. It's a SurveyMonkey instrument, so we would love to hear from you to hear about your experiences on the webinar today. Finally, of course, thank you to David. Said free and helpful and showed us how to do those searches. I learned about Issues Lab today. That was a piece I didn't know about before. So thank you to David so much for joining us on the call today. Feel free to reach out to me and join the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky e-newsletter. You can do that by going to our website, healthy-ky.org. And thank you to each of you for being on our call today. It's great to see a list of people from all over Kentucky in all different sectors working on this to improve the health of Kentuckians. Thank you for being on the call.
That does conclude today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.